Your motto is empowering talent. To what end?
Well, we think that when you come after the bachelor, you have a lot of potential. But clearly, if you want to work truly in the real world, there's a lot to be learned yet. And I think that the relationship we had with most of the top managers that we see tell us that it's important the kind of framework that you build before you start working. And from this point of view, the kind of effort that we are making in our 2-year programs is exactly to provide the ability to read the outside world, to read the field in which you want to work, being that management or economics or finance or anything else, and to have the view to enter into this world with the companies that you need and the ability to read how the market is evolving.
The real world, that's a theme that's coming up, but the real world is a pretty ugly place, isn't it? Are we empowering students for good or for bad? Are they joining a broken system, or are they going to make it better?
Well, what I think is Bocconi as a whole, I think from the foundation, was the first university working on management and economics in Italy made up by an entrepreneur. And I think in our culture there has also been the fact of supporting the growth of the country first, now of Europe. And from this point of view, I think that working in the real world is a contribution that you give to the world we live in. So from this point of view, understanding how it works, understanding how you can work better in a company, make it more successful, provide better products for the customers, or being a policymaker and trying to design better policies, I think that's truly important. So I would be afraid if I had people coming out from the universities who are worried to enter into the real world, who are not willing to give their contribution.
Specifically in finance, that's a strength of Bocconi. Mm-hmm. The finance industry has had a bad reputation in recent years. There was this recession, the banks have a bad rap. Is it responsible to produce more financiers in this day and age?
I think the point is finance is important, it is necessary for the development of the economic system. And I also think that overall people are not recognizing that finance has helped the growth that was before the crisis. Maybe too fast, maybe too unregulated, but it has helped and it still is important for recovery. So from this point of view, I see as a mission, if you want, of preparing people who are finance guys who are responsible. Let me tell you two things. When we launched the course, well before the crisis, we thought it was compulsory to have a risk management course, to have people being knowledgeable about the risk that they are taking in the banking activity. And we also had a course of economic history of crisis, of financial crisis, as an optional course that we wanted to provide as an opportunity to students to be aware that crises may happen, that it is important to try to avoid them, and they should be kept into the picture. So in a sense, the point is not that we can avoid finance, we need responsible finance, and we want people who are competent in doing that.
So back to the word talent. Imagine you've finished your BA, you have a raw talent. Wouldn't it be better to go and work rather than to sit another 2 years in the university?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. It depends a bit, I think, on your time frame or your horizon. Let's say you conceive yourself as somebody who's going to live and work for the next 3 years. Then if you ask me the question, am I better if I work for 3 years or if I study for a 2-year program and then work for 1? The answer would be evident. But if you consider that if you're coming out from the bachelor, you're probably going to work for many years, then it's a different story. And then is where I think that a proper master is giving you an accelerator of your career in a completely different mindset. Let me make this example. Imagine you are a piano player, a young piano player who has some training with a master and is starting enjoying the piano. After some classes, you say, well, you know what, it's fun for me playing the piano, and I think that these lessons with the masters are boring. So let's just play a lot myself and have fun, and without having any extra training. Of course you can do that. You're probably going to have more fun in the short term, but I don't think you're going to go to any camera and to any orchestra by doing this kind of strategy. You're not going to become a true outstanding piano player if you don't have the passion which is strong enough to go through the proper training when you're young.
So on this piano example, how about I'm playing the piano for 3 years, I get pretty good, sitting in a room on my own playing the piano.
Yeah.
I could go out and start playing a few gigs, hotel bars, a bit of jazz, but I stay in my rehearsal room for 2 more years. Am I really going to be a better performer after hiding from the world?
The point is whether the place in which you're going is making you hide from the world or not. In the program that we have in mind, we have 2 years here, but first of all, there's a compulsory internship, so you basically can't graduate if you're playing the piano well enough outside. So you have to have spent 3 months at least playing piano, and for most of the students, they spend much more than 3 months out of the 2 years in an internship. Moreover, the kind of interaction that we have with the professors during the courses and also with the students is much less theoretical than you would expect. Of course, there's some theoretical ground, but we also want application. So from this point of view, it is not, it is, so to say, it's a case in which you study the piano, but you also play the piano. It's not a case in which you only look at piano notes without ever touching a piano for 2 years. That's not exactly how we teach and how we conceive university.
Would I be a better piano player if I was forced to conduct or play the violin or some other instrument? I don't know how far we can take this metaphor, but it sounds like I'm just playing the piano for 5 years. Mm-hmm. I'm just studying, I'm just reading books, I have a few internships. I'm concerned that the profile is quite an academic graduate at the end, mm-hmm. into a world of business which is dynamic.
Yeah, I think that honestly, this is why we are different. In the sense that over a 2-year program, one thing which is truly important for us is to have a first year where you are forced to learn different things which are relevant for your field but keep you broader. So let's say in an international management course, having a course on macroeconomics is not standard, but I think it's important because you must understand that much better if you're going to work on a multinational company and you're going to be able to read the evolution of the global market to a number of things. So this is to say, in our piano school, you are also forced to have some violin and some directing, because we think that's important from the point of view of the flexibility and the wider mindset through which when you play your piano, maybe you're going to play the piano, but you understand what the other people around you in the orchestra are doing, which is completely important when you work in a field. So from this standpoint, we also work a lot on other areas. I mean, there are extracurricular activities, there are courses that the students can come in physics, for instance, or astronomy or sociology, they can attend while they are here. There are a lot of different kind of activities because we want a living environment and we want them to be broad.
In a promotional video that you've made, you say that an MSc can be a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? What does that mean, a wasted opportunity?
And what I mean is that when you come out from the bachelor and you have to decide which kind of masters you want to go through, it's a crucial decision, clearly. It's very important. It's going to shape what you're going to do and which kind of training, which kind of education, which is better than training, you're going to get for the long term. And in a number of cases, people have the sense that if I'm doing some master, for the same reason that I am going through some master, recruiters would note me, and perhaps what matters is having a title which is master in something, not the content. And this is where I think it's a wasted opportunity. Because basically it's crucial to understand two things. First, the content that I get into the 1 year or 2 year matter. Second, there's a clear difference between 1 year programs and 2 year programs. If you buy something to go around with an engine and some wheels, you know that it has 4 wheels, it's a car. If it has 2 wheels, it's a motorcycle. And you do different things with the car and the motorcycle. With the motorcycle, you move faster, but you can't bring your family of 3 if you have with the motorcycle, right? With a master, apparently people do not distinguish that what they can get from a 1 year program or a 2 year program is different. And they don't get, for instance, which is a third key point, that if I'm aiming at a top recruiter, I should question myself, which are the places where top recruiters are going to find people? So what I'm saying is a wasted opportunity is that people look at masters more formally. I like the name of the topic written here, and I think that more or less all finance programs or management programs are the same. They don't look enough at the track record of top places in placing people in top institutions.
Okay, so 150 companies come twice a year to Bocconi to recruit. Why here?
Well, actually it's more than that. We have in the large area, which is downside here, basically 220 companies that come in 2 big job fairs twice a year. And in most cases, they come with the European headquarters. So it's not the Italian company coming. Some, of course, are only Italian, but some are with the European headquarters. On top of that, we have some dedicated fairs. So we have one on investment banks with other 20 investment banks coming on different dates. Sometimes we have one of Asian, sometimes we have one of international organizations. And the reason is, I think, because they like the quality of the people that come out of here. One thing, for instance, that we've seen in the last few years, which have clearly been bad years for the whole European economy, is that clearly most companies on average hire less, and second, they're more selective. So they are reducing the number of universities they visit, and they want to keep close contacts through. This honestly has played in our favor, because basically we have remained to be one of the top places to hire for all the big corporations, and we've seen more efforts from them to recruit more people from Bocconi with an increasing market share in a smaller pie, if you wish.
I can't help but notice this emphasis on employability. One of the reasons for doing the 2-year masters, again, is employability, and here's a big stress on the corporate world that comes in and takes Bocconi students. Is this a place of learning or a corporate conveyor belt?
Well, the point is, I feel responsible for the time that the students are spending here. So what I'm saying, as I said, I mean, the choice of a master is very important on a personal standpoint. We spend a lot of time in trying to advise them with proper offices, sometimes even with the course director, in which is the optimal program for them. And I feel the sense of the responsibility for a critical choice of young people who decide to study here. So what I think is, I must make sure that what we teach in the courses is making them make a jump from the point of view of their ability to be in the market, be influential, be able to work. And I think that in order to do that, of course, we must compare two things. The vision from the point of view of where management work is going, which the academia is bringing, and also the needs that recruiters are bringing to us. So there's a lot of value in interacting with recruiters, understanding what they want, which kind of competencies they want, which kind of skills, which does not mean that we are passive. It means that in many cases we say, you know what, this is not still asked, but we think that's important for the future, so we teach them to you, even if recruiters did not ask for that. But having an interaction, understanding from the recruiter's standpoint what they want to look at, understanding whether we are clever enough in doing this kind of work, I think has a lot of value for this institution.
I'm wondering if a student that studies at Bocconi feels a lot of pressure on graduating to get a high status, high paid job, both because everybody else is going for that, and second because he's paid so much for his studies. Is this a sort of constant push to do things? There's a sort of automatic process here that I've got to go and be the best and get the highest.
Well, I think that the kind of personal choices that you can make when you finish can be very different. I mean, there are people who can decide after all that they want to do different things after they try the program, or maybe there can be people that after 3 years decide they don't even want to work. They can afford it, and that's okay. What I think is everybody feels the experience here as something which has made a change. And that's the important part of the story. Then you can decide you are not going to work for the most paid company. And honestly, I don't think that while our cost can be relatively high than others, it's not so high, and there is a lot of value out of there. And this is what is perceived. Otherwise, we won't work in this way. But I think that they know that they could potentially compete for the top places, but still we do not stress that you must do some mechanical choice that the others are doing. I mean, whenever I talk to individual students, I always stress a lot, it's a personal choice what you want to do, the work-life balance. It's absolutely important to have your personal view on that. The point is, you know, that if you wanted to go for the top places, you can.
So, but I noticed that, for example, the e-financial careers ranking, Bocconi is sending the second most graduates into London finance.
Yeah.
Even more than a lot of London-based.
Yeah, we are quite happy about it.
But how can it possibly be the case that an Italian university is sending more people to finance than people from the schools from the same country?
Well, I think there's an important point, which is places in London in investment banking are clearly an area in which there is absolutely European-wide competition. So basically, that's where some top recruiters try to concentrate and try to pick the very best guys they can find across Europe. Point number one. And this is why I think that on this market, which is absolutely European-wide, we perform better as opposed to, I mean, what is seen apparently on the corporate sector, where a number of cases recruiting is more on a nation basis, and only the top corporations are having programs of graduate recruiting Europe-wide. So I think as this grows, we are going to perform better and better and become more visible also in the corporate sector. But I think that there's an area in which the 2-year structure that we have and forcing the students to be broader in the first year is tremendously important. So I think we have had a reputation, and the typical feedback of the people who come back from the first year and having had their internship is, you know what, professor, when we had meetings, I was one of the few interns who understood everything that was said on any topic we will discuss about a given company. I understood about financial statement, understood about the structured finance deal we wanted to make, understood about derivatives. And this is something that the market is appreciating, employers are appreciating, and the international students are understanding. So we have people who said they come here because they had an internship with Bocconi guys and said, we want to have the same training.
So I'm not going to dispute that the students leave in a very good state to work. But I wonder if I would be proud of sending so many people to London finance. Isn't that the definition of corruption, greed, unnecessary chasing after profit? It's like the black hole of capitalism.
Well, honestly, I think that the finance has a function. Basically, financing, for instance, the new ventures that can come up, the startups that can build in a country, or even financing large corporations, helping them raise money on the market when it is more difficult to get them from commercial banks as it is in the current phase. I think this is helping the growth of the economy. Of course, we can question which are going to be the salaries in that business, which I think are not the same as perhaps 5 years ago, as we can potentially question the salaries on, say, big corporations sometimes. But I think it's an important function, and what I think is it matters a lot the way in which you look at that. I think it matters a lot how you are long-termist in doing this kind of business. And if you are not a good guy, you are not going to survive that long. One thing I'm particularly proud of is the fact that most of the banks tell us that the share that we have on people who get promoted to higher positions, the people who stay in top investment banks for a long time, is much, much higher than our already high market share of the new hires, which I think that most of the people coming out from here have a more long-term orientation even if they work in finance. And I do believe you can be responsible in that area. I know a number of people who have refused to do some of the things for which finance overall has been blamed. And I think that's one of the best things I can say about the kind of approach that we're trying to transmit.
Sending all of these Bocconi graduates, a lot of Italian graduates, to London, other places in Europe, don't their Italian mothers miss their bambinos? You're sending them away.
Well, there are two sides of the question. One is the reaction of mothers. Perhaps I might have been blamed by some mother of students of ours because we held their kids too much to have international careers, but I think I was pardoned after some years. On the other hand, I think that if you wish, we might have the concern that from the point of view of Italian talent, there are people who, thanks to us, find an international career and work abroad. But there are two things to be said. First, I think that it's important for a number of these people may eventually come back maybe after 10 years or 15 years of international career, to have people also in Italian firms which have had substantial international exposure, so in the long term that's good. On the other hand, there are also people who are international talents who, after having studied here, decide they want to stay in Italy. So there's a sort of a balance out of that. And in any case, on a European scale, I mean, the fact of having in top corporations people who have a truly European view is important. You can't think about having a career in management or finance or economics on a totally national basis at present. I think it is going to be impossible.
Are there any jobs left in Italy?
In terms of, are there any job opportunities?
I mean, are there any attractive jobs? If I've got a Bocconi degree, why would I stay in a country like Italy?
Well, I think that there might be fewer opportunities, but there can be good opportunities. And for instance, I know about at least 3 people that I supervised for the final dissertation who got a job offer from an investment bank in London and turned it down to work in consulting in Italy, for instance, because they wanted to say, you know what, I'm seeing myself more in consulting to work for some years there, maybe build my own startup, say 5 or 10 years from now, and giving a contribution here. So there are opportunities even there. And I think that in a sense, the advantage that we had is that, as I was saying, even corporations who are recruiting less tend to concentrate their recruiting here and strengthen the interaction that we have. So we still are able to offer good opportunities in Italy as well. Of course, I must admit that I suffer for the fact that overall the job market in Italy is not in a fantastic setting. I think there can be improvements, but clearly it's not the best state of the world we can imagine. But still, this has not hurt us as one can imagine, and still we are able to offer very good opportunities.
When I hear the word management, Italy doesn't tend to spring to mind. I think of Germany or America. Italy's more associated with nice food, romance, a gondola trip. Why would I study management in Italy?
Well, because on one hand, I think that there are places with a top reputation on that. We are one from the academic point of view, but also from the point of view of industries. I think if you think about, say, fashion or food industry, but also some areas of manufacturing, there are industries for which Italy is very strong. Of course, from the point of view of the industrial structure, we tend to have more small and medium enterprises than other countries. So maybe we have fewer relatively global brand names that you might think of outside of, say, fashion, luxury, food, apparel, furniture, which is not that little anyhow, and certain areas of manufacturing. But I think it is a place where there are some national champions which are interesting and good management schools. And from this point of view, I think that what you would need is not the fact of whether I have enough champions there, but am I going to a place which is going to teach management to me well enough, to give me the broader view to be potentially successful in management in my career. And while of course we have linkages with Italian firms, we have linkages with many others which are non-Italian. So I think that in the kind of work that we have now, we can have interaction with the headquarters of many companies outside Milan as close as a company which is living in that country. If we've been able to do that with investment banks in London, it's the same if you think about, say, Vodafone or Procter & Gamble, who are in London or Geneva.
I'm in Milan, I'm running late to class, I've got all my bags and my books and I'm running along the street. Am I going to bump into a model from Prada or Chanel on my way to class?
Well, in certain periods of the year, it may happen, of course. I'm not able to check whether people who miss a class are missing that for this reason. I have no statistics on that, but potentially it can happen.
What I am concerned about is that Milan seems like a fairly well-heeled city. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to afford to live in the city centre. What's my accommodation going to be like?
Yeah, well, I think basically when you think about the location in which you're going to be and you compare different international campuses, of course, there are pros and cons about where we are. I think we have the advantage of being in a place in which you can walk 15 minutes and get into the city center. So it's fantastic from the point of view of the true interaction with the city. You're not in the suburbs, you're in the heart of Milan. And from the point of view of the location, we have been working a lot in increasing the number of places available in dorms. So they are a lot already, and they are increasing.
Dormitories?
Yeah.
That means I share?
Sorry?
Do I share a room?
Also with individual rooms, potentially. Okay. So maybe you share some common services, but you have your own room. Mm-hmm. And this is something we've been working a lot continuously, and we are still increasing the number of that, because, of course, in order to help accommodating students who are not from Milan, from Italy, and all the students coming from abroad. On top of that, I would say that in the area in which we live, there are a lot of apartments which are rented to students. And since we are close to the center, but not exactly in the center, of course, some people can decide to stay another 10 minutes walk towards the outside of the city, which is still not too distant and more reasonable. I think that from this point of view, you should balance that out with the fact that being within Milan, it's a completely different environment than being 20 kilometers outside in the countryside in terms of the experience that you are making. And also in the cost of interacting with the city, your personal life while you're staying here.
So I'm keen on getting into Bocconi. I see you've got 10 MSCs. Mm-hmm. I can apply for more than one, so yeah. Why not apply to all 10?
Well, you can apply to up to 5, and with a ranking, so with the first choice, second choice, third choice, and so on and so forth. And this is also because, of course, there are areas in which potentially you could be interested in different flavors.
What's the easiest one to get into?
Well, this is not one of the questions that I can answer.
But there is an easy one.
Well, the applications can vary in terms of number, but the point is it's a hard question to answer because it depends a lot, not so much on the number of applications, but also on the quality of application and the kind of profile you look for. I mean, the kind of guy who's fantastic for a course in economics may be different from the kind of guy that would want to for a course in innovation and technology, or for a course in management of art, culture, and media, or for finance. So it's a matter of, in a sense, you compete with the people who are in the same ground with the same kind of target.
My stepdad's very, very rich. Do you think I could get into Bocconi and he would maybe buy us some new chairs?
Well, I mean, we have a very strong tradition in keeping completely separated admission and the characteristic of the people. We don't consider who the people is in terms of family relationship when we go for admission.
But what if he bought maybe a whole wing for the school?
A whole wing? Well, I think, to my knowledge, I think this has never had any impact on our decision to admit people.
I'm not sure I want to be a business.
So I think that perhaps you are likely, he has made so much money, maybe he's smart, maybe you are smart as well and they've had a great environment, so maybe you are admitted, and if you do that afterwards, we would be grateful. But I think this is not going to influence. I think many people did not enter and we were fine, even if they were from very good families.
Will I be studying with people who are quite well off? I'm just a bit nervous that coming to a private institution, I might not have enough money to keep up with my clothes.
Well, that's a fantastic question. Of course, we can have people coming from well-off families, but we are not a university only for well-off people. We have a strong system in place of scholarships. We truly believe that one of the roles of the university is to provide a social elevator to people who are talented and do not have the means to afford a university. And this is why, in terms of the scholarship system and the kind of aid, we do the best we can to attract the people who are truly great but do not have the means to afford the university. For instance, on top of having the chance of having scholarship for them, we also provide extra support for a few for having also the chance to participate to international opportunities. So in our 2-year programs, one thing which is also important is that 50% of our students have some international experience within the 2 years. Maybe they take a exchange semester abroad, or maybe they have an internship abroad. And for instance, there's also support for the ones who are most talented and need that, to have the chance to go for an exchange program where perhaps just the cost of living may be an issue for them, and they could be prevented from having this important experience because they don't have the money.
Can I have a scholarship?
You can apply, and we have basically 2 kinds of scholarship. One set is the scholarship that we have, which are purely based on merit. So we truly want key talents, and we are not going to take as a disadvantage if you happen to come from a wealthy family as opposed to a non-wealthy family. So we look at the CV, the GMAT, the overall set of experiences, which kind of grades you had in all the exams, in the previous experience, which university you come from, anything possibly. And then you have a second set of scholarship, which instead are based on need, because we know clearly that we must support people who have good talent and need, and in order to have the chance to afford the university. But we feel absolutely the fact that there is a social mission of the university of bringing the chance of people who do not come from the best possible environments to have the chance to do that. And incidentally, if I can add a personal note, I mean, I myself, I'm not coming from a family of incredible situation. I mean, the people who were with me at the first level of schools have not gone to the university. I was perhaps one of the 2 people who studied with me when I was in my 10 to 12 years who went to the university coming out from my class. So I do not consider myself, if you wish, one of this kind, and I think that's the culture that we have here.
One thing that looks like an obstacle to me is the language requirements. It says that on graduating, these MSc graduates have proficiency in 3 languages.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, we don't expect you to be able to write poems in Italian. I mean, you can, perhaps. I mean, you look as a talented guy, so I guess you can do that. But I mean, that's another requirement for graduating. I mean, so there's a requirement of having a basic proficiency in 2 European languages plus yours, which basically means that everybody has to come out with English, everybody has to come out with Italian, and maybe a third one. And but I mean, this is not been an obstacle. I mean, all the people have been able to do that and still survived. On top of that, we also offer other languages as a possibility for those who want to have them. So I mean, you must have 3 different languages from Europe, plus potentially if you want to study here as an extra course, say Chinese or Arabic or Russian, we have courses for that, because of course they are important as well.
But maybe I'd like to study Chinese or Arabic as my 3rd language. So I've got Italian and English. I don't think I've got enough time to learn another European language and Chinese, even in 2 years. Is it not a bit Eurocentric to only offer European languages?
I mean, on this part, on one hand, there's a requirement that we have to fulfill for the Italian state to have two other European languages. On the other hand, I think honestly that's important in many cases, because for the point of view of also many of the opportunities abroad, say to come up when you know very well, of course, English, and maybe another one between French or Spanish or German, can help you a number of job opportunities outside in many areas, or can have the semester abroad, say in Germany or France or in Belgium or in South America, that can be very valuable. So I mean, honestly, this has not been a main issue of complaint for many people, and the level which is required is reasonable after all, so it's not impossible. There are also some nice things that I think we set up in the past, and we still have actually, which I think has also been very nice in terms of interaction, which is what is called Tandem learning, where basically our language center can couple up 2 people from different nationalities that exchange some talks in their own home language in order to help each other to learn. So maybe you couple somebody who is a French guy with a Russian one, and have them talking part in Russian, part in French, in order to make them more comfortable in conversation in the two, if you have the French guy who wants to learn Russian and vice versa, for instance.
Do you do the tandem learning on a bicycle?
No, not to my knowledge, I think.
I love the sound of learning these languages. I'm just nervous that I'm going to be able to get a good grade in a second language.
I mean, honestly, this has not been an issue. We have courses on that, and I think people understand it's useful. I've not seen, to my knowledge, this as an issue of big resistance in coming here. I think also that from this standpoint, again, when we look at a broader picture of why should I spend 2 years there, I think that having the chance of having 1 year of full broader training in the first year, some very specialized optional courses in the second, plus an internship, plus maybe if I'm clever, a semester abroad in another country, plus this level of also language exposure and international exposure, having more time to interact with the others, I think that's very important. And also one thing which is also, I think, great is that in a 2-year setting, you have overlapping cohorts. So if the people who study finance in the second year who interact with the one in the first year, the people who study management in the second year who interact with the first one, they share experiences, they know more people, the kind of network they come up with is completely different in terms of size and breadth and richness. And I think that's important. And also language study is a way in which these people interact and get more in touch with in across also degrees, which I think is good.
I think something that would help me put some meat on that is maybe, could you tell a story or a case of a student, a non-Italian student, and maybe their path through the school and where they've gone?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there are many paths. I mean, I'm directly teaching finance, so the people I know better are from this field. But if I think, for instance, at the last 5 people I supervised for the final dissertation, I mean, 2 are working in London, one in trading, one in risk management in a big corporation in London. One person is working in Citigroup in Poland. One is working in Boston Consulting Group, so a consulting company in Belgium. And the other one turned down an offer from investment banking in London to work in McKinsey in Milan. Very, very different choices out there, a lot of discussions that we had in terms of what was the right thing to be done. And among these people, for instance, there is also one person I'm still in touch with constantly that I supervised in past years, is a lady coming out from former Yugoslavian country, getting an offer in London and then getting back to Milan in consulting, using also the Italian she learned during the 2 years, which was at the beginning just decent. Now, after 2 years in Italy, it's fantastic, and she loves the fact of having the chance of touring around Italy in consulting because she loves the country.
You've mentioned the names of several employers. There's a list of Bocconi's top 25 recruiters. Mm-hmm. What criteria are there for this list?
Oh, it's very simple. The one who hires most people. So I mean, we rank them on the different degrees on our brochures. I mean, there are people where on an average, because I mean there can be volatility from year to year, but on the average of the last 3 years, if I'm correct, they hire more people from the degree.
That was because that was my query, was that, for example, I see Google on the list, but I can't know from it if you've had 1 or 100 Bocconi graduates go to Google.
Well, honestly, I can't answer the number actually of how many people come out from Google, but surely it's not going to be 1, because with 1 person it would have not been in the top 25 list. So maybe on smaller classes could be 3. We don't know, but still, I mean, that's based on an average. So I mean, it means that on a mostly stable basis, it tends to be among the top recruiters. And incidentally, they are coming here for the fair. So I mean, it's not impossible.
I've got a choice of MSCs. One is ranked in the FT. Also, the finance is ranked in the FT. How can I justify to my parents coming all the way to Italy and doing one of the non-ranked MSCs?
Well, currently the rankings are structured in 2 different ways. There are some rankings which are more linked to the faculty as a whole, the university as a whole in different fields. So for instance, there's QS ranking where we rank around number 5 or 6 or 4 depending on the year in accounting and finance in Europe, and similarly in economics and econometrics, but there's not for management, for instance. And there are other rankings such as FT rankings which are listed to specific kind of programs. So from this standpoint, there's a ranking for management courses, there's a ranking for finance courses, and there's not at present ranking for different kinds of specialization programs. So to a certain extent, if, for instance, if you attend here a course on innovation and technology, there's not one ranking for these kind of courses.
Okay, but
after all.
I'm talking to my parents, we're in the living room, it's Christmas time, we're discussing plans, and I show them the prospectus. Oh, this program is ranked, this program is ranked. Oh, but mum and dad, it's the problem of the rankings, people. They still have to go to their dinner party and say what their son is doing.
Yeah, what I say is, from this point of view, the picture of the university can come out from the programs where the university is ranked. And what I would tell is, perhaps tell them that you're going to a university in which we had an increase on average in the last 3 years of 5 to 6 positions per year on FT rankings on all programs. I think this should sound not too bad from the point of view of where it can stand when the innovation program could be ranked, if this would happen in future time. And on the other hand, I think the point is, I think you should tell to your parents that the kind of program you're taking is the right one for the kind of field where you want to work. So if it is able to place the people exactly with the top recruiters they want, I think the program works, even if it is not ranked.
So one thing that's really critical is not just the technical knowledge, but who I know.
Yeah.
How does the alumni network actually operate?
Well, the alumni network is actually very important. I think there's also a lot of value of starting here, because the alumni network works having international chapters. So there are Bocconi alumni associations in, say, London or Brussels or Paris or Shanghai or Singapore, Hong Kong, basically everywhere. And also, of course, there is an association in Italy as opposed to any in different kind of countries. So we have some meetings which are made already when the students are here. So for instance, one thing I organized as the Dean of the Graduate School was in the last few years, was to bring back to a meeting with the students some of our top alumni, having meetings which were co-organized by the Graduate School and the Alumni Association. So for instance, say Gianni Cesarani, who's the head of Procter & Gamble in Europe, who came back and talked about his early years outside from Bocconi to the students studying management and international management and marketing and innovation. Or having, say, Vittorio Colau, who's the CEO of Vodafone worldwide, getting back and talking to students, or similar kind of people.
But then I have a specific question, which is, I understand that you've got global chapters, but one of the strengths of the MSCs here is that they are specialized.
Yeah.
How will I use the specialism to network?
Perfect. In our alumni association, we're organized over basically 2 dimensions. One is the location, so depending on the local chapter where you are. The other one is the field. So it's also organized in a matrix structure, if we wish, by topics. So there's the group of people interested in private equity, there's a group of people interested in sustainability, the ones interested in innovation, and so on and so forth. And therefore, they can organize activities, can be in Milan, but say organized by streaming and see in any other place, or maybe if you do something in finance, we can do that in London and then do that also available for Milan guys, as an example. So we try to cover both dimensions, also because in a number of cases that's a chance for people who did not maybe study exactly in the same degree to meet together, get melt, and have interaction afterwards their study. And also the fact is, as I was saying here, that we have overlapping courses so that people from the 2 years in a row interact a lot. I think that's also very, very important. So we are honestly very happy about how these alumni associations are going on, and for instance about how they also care about the people who are starting. I mean, I was in Brussels last November for a meeting of the Alumni Association with two top guys from the European Investment Bank and the president of a big Italian bank and a person from the European Commission. And I saw there both people who had been spent 20 years in Brussels and people who were there for an internship at the European Parliament, or people who just started their first work. I think that's the nice thing of the alumni around the world.